Hi, this is Steve from Nothing Ventured, Nothing Gained, here to bring you a second look into the new Project Black Flag by Kobold Press. Stay tuned. Fire the cannons! So, last time we took a look at Project Black Flag is when they came out with their Playtest #1 PDF that basically started laying out the groundwork for this new project from Kobold Press called Project Black Flag. And Jared and I had discussed it, and we really weren't wowed by it. We're waiting to be wowed, and it just never happened. And for a lot of intents and purposes, it looks very similar to 5th edition. Now, we know that they're using 5th edition as backwards compatible, but they know that they had mentioned that they're going to change some things. We didn't see too many major changes from the first playtest, but they just released their second playtest. So if you guys want to go down to Kobold Press, I'll leave a link somewhere in the thing below, somewhere. Links will appear magically. Ooh. Links will appear somewhere on down below, and you will see a place where you can go download it yourself if you haven't already signed up for their newsletter and you've already gotten that email. And they're also looking for feedback for their system. So this time they've not only, because obviously the first one, they gave us character backgrounds, and they also gave us character races, or whatever they happen to call them, ancestries, races, species, I don't know, whatever term that we're all using these days to talk about what kind of person that we're playing. So we're going to go and take a look at now with the Project Playtest 2, they've released 2 classes and a new type of subtype that they're using in their version of their Project Black Flag. So as we switch over, oh, it works. It works. I only spent an hour trying to set this up. As you see, yeah, Project Playtest #2, and you'll see it kind of scrolling on the bottom portion of the screen there, and we'll be able to go through this bit by bit. Now, I may not go over every least little thing, but I did take, I do have notes. I have notes. So I am going to be flipping through my notes here, and we're going to be taking a deep dive into, as time permits, going into what looks like change, what looks like it stayed the same, what new things are trying to add, and all that different little stuff as we go through, and to see if we're starting to get that wow feeling back into Project Black Flag. So we were all hyped up when they announced it, and then for me it kind of petered out a little bit when they came out with the Playtest 1, but hopefully something in here. I do see, just to give you my opinions kind of up front, I do see promise now. I do see things that they are changing. It is very much in the vein of 5th edition. So don't think that we're completely getting away from 5th edition here. We're still in the vein of 5th edition. And they've said this when they've released this information here. So it's not going to be a complete departure. We're not going to Pathfinder 2nd edition. We're not going to a whole brand new system. We are still in the core and the skeleton of 5th edition, but let's see what has changed. So the first thing I want to bring up here is this right here, luck. Luck is a system that they're implementing into Project Black Flag that is a complete replacement for what is known in 5th edition as inspiration. And this system kind of borders between the two ideas of, if you look at Pathfinder 2nd edition, they have hero points. And that isn't actually a system that even from 4th edition Dungeons & Dragons, they had the action points. So that kind of system, similar to that system, it's kind of like a mix between that and the 5th edition system of inspiration. So let's take a quick look. So first things first, luck is a pool of points. You have a number of luck points that you can possess at any given time, and you can use those for incremental bonuses to a die roll. So the idea is you roll a die, whether it's a skill check, an ability check, a saving throw, whatever check you're rolling, and you can then decide. So if you know what the die roll is, you rolled at 6. Like, oh man, but I got a pretty good bonus, but I don't know if I passed or failed. Then before the GM tells you if you passed or failed, or the ramifications of that die roll, you can choose to spend a number of luck points to increase that die roll 1 point of the luck spent, 1 point increase in your die. So you want to spend 3 luck points, your 6 becomes a 9. And then plus all your other bonuses. Obviously, you can't use this to make a natural 1 not a natural 1, and you can't force a natural 20 this way. So this is standard stuff for anyone who sees dice and manipulation. You can't automatically crit by spending a whole bunch of luck points. It just doesn't work that way. And yeah, your crit fail, it's a crit fail no matter what you do. And he goes, oh wait, what happens about the re-rolling? Here's the next section here. If you see, you can choose to spend 3 luck points to choose to entirely re-roll the dice with the same rules apply. So you have to roll the die, you know what the roll is, but you don't know what the result is. The GM is not necessarily going to tell you what the DC is or what ramifications are going to happen if you fail. You're climbing that ladder, you pretty much know you might fall if you roll too low, so you might want to re-roll that die. And here we go. Now, how do we get luck points? This is an important thing. If there's a whole new system, and they've even specifically said in the system, it was a little bit earlier in the spot that I looked at, but the luck points is a complete revamping. So if you're going to use luck, you cannot use inspiration. The 2 systems are not compatible. It will be way too powerful to have inspiration and luck points, because that luck points, part of it is re-rolling your dice. You'd never spend the 3 luck points if you had inspiration too. So this is a complete revamp. If you're going to use inspiration, you keep inspiration, you don't use luck. If you're using luck, you don't use inspiration. Pretty self-explanatory. So how do we get, as I said before, how do we get luck points? So we start off with 0 luck points on character creation. And I believe the way they're implying the system is that luck carries over from game to game to game. And so we gain luck points whenever we fail a check. We fail an attack roll, we fail a save, well, it's an attack roll or save, not just skill checks. It's attack rolls or saves. If we fail an attack roll or we fail a save, we gain a luck point. Now also, the GM, just like hero points in Pathfinder and also action points in other systems, the GM can grant it for clever use or clever RP or deciding to follow your flaw instead of doing what's statistically beneficial. Or it says here that you can gain luck points by surviving a particularly difficult battle. The GM can award the group luck points. Now, you spend luck points, as we said before, by increasing your die roll or completely re-rolling your dice. But is there an upper limit of how many luck points we have? And yes, there is. To incentivize players to not hoard all their luck points and always just use it to re-roll or always use it to like give a +10 or +15. To encourage the GM to give out luck points, but it also encourage the player to use their luck points. There is a limit of 5 luck points. You have 5 luck points that you can have on your character. If you ever exceed 5 luck points, you roll a d4. And when you roll a d4, whatever result is on that d4, that's what your luck points are set to before you gain that new luck point. So basically, you're resetting your pool. So yeah, you could roll a 4 and you only lose 1 luck point, but you could roll a 1 and lose almost all of your luck points. So it really incentivizes, this system really incentivizes the players to use their luck points in interesting situations and anytime that they need that little extra boost to either re-roll their dice or to get that +1, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 to their die roll to really swing the tide. But it also, it gives value. It's just the funny thing is that in the 5th edition and in other games too, it's always like, oh man, on my turn, I'm going to roll an attack. Oh, I rolled a 3. Well, next person goes. And it's always that feeling of like, I effectively accomplished nothing. And with this system, you've effectively accomplished something because you gained luck points. So the next time you roll a 5, you can maybe spend some of those luck points to boost your die roll to actually do something, which it gives you at least gives you something for failing, which I think is a really cool concept. Okay, here we go. We're going to go back into classes here. So yeah, luck points. I'm all for luck points. I'm all for luck points. Big thumbs up to luck points. Yes, more of that. So based on nothing else, they opened up with cool stuff that they're adding to their game. That this is starting to wow me. Like this kind of stuff really is going to inspire me to want to play this game because we have the system where you can do cool stuff with luck points, but also you're gaining something when you're effectively failed to do stuff on your turn. So cool stuff. So we're getting into classes now. So I was like I said in the beginning of the video, they started introducing classes. They gave you the fighter and the wizard, 2 iconic, quintessential classes of fantasy role-playing games. The person who wields the magic of the time and space, and the person who bashes shit over the head, and they're better at it than everybody else. So we're gonna skip by this. Obviously, proficiency. We brought this up in the last game. The letters PB means proficiency bonus, and Project Black Flag. The one thing that intrigued us in the first playtest was the idea that certain classes are going to gain, and actually certain races in the first playtest, and then also this is going to go over into the classes, is certain classes have abilities to double up on their proficiency bonus doing certain things. The things that they're really good at, they're going to potentially get double the proficiency bonus to whatever die roll they're doing, which really incentivizes that they're really good at that thing. They may not be good at all this other. They may be good at this stuff. They're really good at this one thing. So proficiency bonus, anytime you see PB, it means proficiency bonus. So we're just going to skip back here. As we see, we have here the fighter and the wizard gives a little brief description. And we're going to go over a little bit of the changes, things that are different between this and 5th edition. So, all right. So the first thing here is, the first thing that many of you who play 5th edition may have noticed, is that if we go back, here to this little chart here, this is key ability. Now, fighter's key ability in Dungeons & Dragons was always strength. You didn't have a choice. In this, you're going to have a choice similar to Pathfinder, which they may be taking nods from that, or maybe like this is not an unusual idea where you have the dexterous fighter or the dexterous or the strength-based fighter. So this is nothing really new, and obviously you get the save proficiencies is Constitution and either Strength or Dex, whichever one you made your key. So that's a slight departure from 5th edition. D10 hit points, this is standard stuff. The skills are exactly the same. The armor is exactly the same. The gear selection is the same. And here we go. Here is the first major difference. So at first level, fighters get last stand. So this ability is, if damage reduces you to half hit points, you can spend your reaction to expend one or more hit dice up to your proficiency bonus. And then you roll those dice. So if you're spending 3 hit dice, so you can spend a number of hit dice equal to your proficiency bonus. Obviously, at first level, you only have 1 hit dice, but as you get higher level, you're limited by your proficiency bonus. As your proficiency bonus goes up, you can decide, when you use this ability, you can decide to use more hit dice in that reaction to gain back health in the middle of combat, which is kind of a cool ability. It kind of keeps you in the game. So you can use this 1 time per long rest, and then you can, you long rest and you get this ability back again. So fighters get this ability. Fighters from 5th edition gain a similar ability called Second Wind, which is a similar ability, but it's different. So the version that you have it in D&D is it's your bonus action, not your reaction, and there's no limit on your health. You can be at any health and use this, but you can only get effectively you only get 1 D10 plus your level. In this case, you get to burn your hit dice, which is either good or bad, but you get to burn your hit dice in the middle of combat, but it's the same thing. It's a once or per long rest. Since it's slightly more powerful, the D&D fighter gets Second Wind, can use it between short or long rest. Once per short or long rest. They both get Action Surge, which is, nothing's changed there. I'm also kind of looking at both. Here we go. Let's see. Yeah, at second level, they both get Action Surge. They see first the 5th edition fighter gets a fighting style, and the fighter from Project Black Flag gets a martial action. So martial action refers to, you have these abilities here. There's 4 different weapon styles. They're very similar, but some of the abilities are very similar and some of the abilities are a little bit different. So with the fighting style from 5th edition, you would get a +2 to all ranged combat. And that's it. You just get +2 while making ranged attacks. With the fighter in Black Flag, as you see, has a bonus action. You can, when you select the aim actions, when you select aim, select 1 target, and you can make a ranged attack against that foe, and you double your proficiency bonus for the first attack. Yet again, going back to the idea of, if we're picking aim, we're focusing our fighter to be a ranged weapon expert, basically. And in this case, our first shot in our turn. So eventually we're gonna have multiple attacks. Our first shot in the turn, we're really good at that first shot, you go pew, and we're gonna be able to get double proficiency bonus in that. So it really takes the idea of that fighter being really good at that one thing, which I think is a really cool thing. So guard lets you block with, lets you defend yourself or somebody else with your shield. And like, yes, so obviously aim requires a ranged weapon, guard requires wielding a shield. And that means the target has disadvantage on their first attack to strike you or someone within 5 feet of you. So if you really want to be that defender type fighter, this is the way to do it. So you would take this as a bonus action, and you would kind of quick guard. You would guard up, and then you would gain that benefit. Quick strike is your 2-weapon fighting style. They give a caveat here because 2-weapon fighting works a little bit differently in Project Black Flag, and this is why there doesn't seem to be a benefit if you know how it plays in 5th edition. Like I said, they give you the little behind the curtain here of like they're retooling how 2-weapon fighting works and the rules. So this doesn't seem like a buff, but in Project Black Flag, it is a benefit to have it work this way, because getting quick strike gives you ability that no other character is going to be able to do. Effectively, to fight with 2 weapons, you have to take the attack action and attack with your main weapon first, and then you can use your bonus action to stab with your or to attack with your offhand weapon. What quick strike allows you to do as a bonus action, you can just make the attack. You don't have to strike. So basically you can make a bonus action to swipe at somebody and then do something completely different with your main action. Or you can attack with your main action. It doesn't have, but you're no longer limited to having to attack with your main weapon first, your primary hand, and then making the bonus action attack. It'll let you do things a little bit out of order. And you'll also gain your ability modifier to the damage, which you normally wouldn't get. And you could also, if you have a thrown weapon in your offhand, you can also chuck that thing, which is kind of cool. And then you have a wind up, which is 2-weapon, big heavy weapons. You will use wind up as a bonus action. And here's the caveat. I'm not sure if they're going to change this or not, because wind up, and I think that I know why they did this, but wind up specifically states you spend your bonus action to wind up. You're hurling that big old weapon over your head and getting a little bit of extra momentum, and you're swinging through, but you only get the double proficiency bonus to weapon enemies within 5 feet of you. So reach weapons wouldn't qualify unless you're right up against somebody. So you can't use reach and get the double proficiency bonus here. So I'm not sure that's something they're going to change. I'm not sure that's something they thought of. Maybe they thought reach weapons were a little bit powerful, so this is to balance them back a little bit, to give, close range, heavy melee weapons a benefit. But this is something that I noticed, that this works with reach weapons, but not when you're reaching with them. So interesting point. And as you see, we'll play Spellblade. We're going to go through that a little second. That's their archetype system. Action Surge works exactly the same as in 5th edition. So if you know how Action Surge works, it just gets you a whole new action during your turn. And you can use it once per short or long rest, and then eventually add higher levels. Now, they only went over 7 levels, as you see in this chart here. No, sorry, so 8 levels. They only went over 8 levels. So there are certain things that the fighters get at higher levels in 5th edition. Obviously, they may meet approximately point for point for them. We're not sure, but they only gave you 8 levels of progression here. So this is something to keep in mind. And here we go with Action Surge. So at Discipline, so at 3rd and 7th level, so at 3rd level, you pick your Discipline, your martial feature. This is very akin to archetypes in the martial archetype from 3rd edition. So this is basically picking your subclass effectively. And at 7th level, your subclass that you picked gets better. And that's why it's 3 and 7. Obviously, like I said, this is only to level 8, so there may be more progressions later. And there's going to definitely, they mentioned that there's going to be more subclasses for each one of these, and obviously there are going to be more classes as well. Here we go. So effectively, they only give you 2. They gave you in this one, in this PDF, the playtest, they gave you the Spellblade, and they gave you the Weapon Master. Those are the 2 disciplines that they gave you in this playtest. Basically, you get whatever benefits that they give you. We're going to go over, we're just going to pick one of them, go over it, because we're going to skip over to the wizard after that. So yeah, so improvement. This is another larger departure from 5th edition. So normal improvements, they were called stat improvements. And what they did is they let you give you 2 +1s to your stats, different stats, or a single +2 to a single stat. And obviously there was limitations of you can't go over 20 for your stats. In this, they gave you a single +1 to one stat and a martial talent, which is akin to feats. Now, obviously, 5th edition, for those of you who played it, feats were an optional variant rule that could be played with. A lot of people play with them because feats are cool. Feats are fun. It lets you modify your characters in unusual ways, let you bend or break some rules. But in this one, it's baked in. Feats are baked into this game, to play the Project Black Flag, and it limits you because it's the martial talents. It's specifically the martial talents, which we're going to get into. There are certain subclasses that may let you branch out into other types of talents. Obviously, you have to meet your prerequisites, just like you meet prerequisites for feats. And we're going to go over some of the talents. Some of the talents in this were carries over from the last one. They brought over some of the old talents from the first playtest to clarify them, because people did have questions. So they decided to bring those forward and clarify them. If they weren't brought forward, it means it still exists. It's just in the first playtest, you can still use them. And nothing in this is set in stone. Obviously, they've made mention multiple times. This is a playtest. Things can change. Things can get improved. Things can be removed. Things can be added. Words can change. So obviously, all right. So on the next thing, at 5th level, they get multi-attack. They get a second attack when they take the attack action, multi-attack from Black Flag, and extra attack from 5th edition are effectively the same ability, and they get them at the same time. And obviously, that's where the class effectively ends. They end at 8th level. You know, they have different things that they get. They get more multi-attack. They get another improvement, another discipline feat. They get a discipline feature. So yeah. So effectively, that's really all the things that we talk about in the base fighter and multi-attack, and that's about the end of it. So we're gonna go over the Spellblade, because I think is the Spellblade, because I think it's cool. It's spellcasting fighter. You're a spellcasting fighter. You're effectively a Gish. You're a Magus, or however you want to play it. So obviously, starting at 3rd level, because that's when you were able to acquire this or the other thing with the Weapon Master, I believe. So you get arcane spellcasting. You get the special. So you get some special abilities. At 3rd level, you're basically mixing magic and martial. You get 2 cantrips from the Arcane Circle. Now, people who or quick guide on this one, you know, what's an Arcane Circle? What does that mean? They changed how spells and magic is defined, but effectively it works very similarly to what it does in 5th edition. They just changed some words around. There's actually a whole section on that, which I'm going to get to, but just bear with me. We're going to go over this first, since we already started talking about the fighter. We're going to talk about the wizard, then we're going to go over to that spell section. But Arcane Circle, effectively, it's the Arcane School of Magic. So you can pick from anything from the Arcane Spell School, and you get the pick, and you get a number of spell slots. The Spellblade is very similar, with albeit a few changes, to the Eldritch Knight. So the Eldritch Knight was a fighter archetype that they could select and basically mix magic with melee. It sounds a lot similar, very similar. There's a couple of things that they've swapped around. There are minor changes here, but for the most part, they are very similar. And this is one of the reasons I bring this up, is that there is some changes, and then on the side, they're effectively the same. So we're going to see that crop up multiple times during our look through here. So effectively, any spells that they select must be abjuration, or evocation. Now, abjuration is usually about defense and protection, and evocation is about blowing stuff up. It's about damage. A lot of times it's about damage or elemental manipulation. It's manipulating the elements in some way. Fireball, burning hands, these are all evocation. Shield is abjurations to protect yourself. So, yes. So they get, and you will also notice that they're called like the first ring or the second ring and the third ring. That goes back to the change that they made to magic. Bear with me, it's going to make sense. Effectively, you can learn a spell of any level up to the max level you can cast. So at third level, you can cast first level spells. You can't pick a second level spell. And as you grow more powerful, you'll be able to get access to higher level spells, and you'll be able to select higher level spells to pick from. So you get 3 spells that you can pick from at third level. At the moment you pick this, you get to pick 3 spells. 2 of those have that school limitations. They have to be either abjuration or evocation. So both of them can be abjuration, both of them can be evocation, or they can be 1 and 1. The third spell slot is free for you to pick from any arcane spell, from any school. And once you reach 8th level and beyond, spells you learn can be from any school of magic. So it starts off as limited by those 2 schools, with the exception of the free one you get. So every spell you learn up to that point, you're going to have 1 free one to pick from any school, which you can pick evocation or abjuration. But those other 2 schools, the spells that you get, have to be from those schools, and anything you learn up to 8th level must be within those 2 schools up until 8th level. Then you're free to choose whatever spells you wish. Obviously, this is the same thing that the Eldritch Knight was able to do at higher levels. When you gain a new spell, you could also swap out a spell that maybe is no longer effective for you. It was a good early game, but now it's maybe not as useful, or maybe you found another spell that's better that you want instead. You can swap out, you can gain a spell as well as swap out a spell that you had gained already. You also, and obviously it's telling you that the spellcasting ability is all focused on intelligence, because you're very much like a wizard in this regard. You can't learn new spells from a spell book like wizards can, but effectively you kind of cast like a wizard, kind of. It tells you how you get your DCs and your attack rolls, if you're going to make attack rolls with your spells. Another ability you get at third level is the ability to enchant your weapon. You basically spend about an hour, you focus on your weapon, and it becomes magical. It gets +1 to attack and +1 to damage, and effectively becomes magical for you. Now, obviously, if you lose your weapon, or if you drop your weapon, or a weapon is taken from you, or you decide to enchant another weapon, the enchantment on the first weapon goes away. This is a slight variation to what the Eldritch Knight got. The Eldritch Knight gained the ability to basically manifest their weapon in anywhere they were in the world, and they couldn't be disarmed. In this, they don't get any of those benefits. The ability is completely different, and effectively it's all focusing on you making your weapon magical. Now, this effect may improve over time, but as it is right now, up to 8th level, it's still just +1 attack, +1 damage. There may be other abilities that you get to modify that in some way, but right now, we're just stuck with the +1 attack, +1 damage, which is nothing to shove your nose at. And here we go, expanded talent list. When we pick talents, we can now pick from the martial or magical talent list. So we're going to get, because we're magical oriented, we're going to get an expanded way we can pull talents. Now we can pull talents from the magical side of things. And we see the Weapon Master. You guys can go look at the Weapon Master on your own. We're going to skip past that, and we're going to now talk about the Wizard. The Wizard. Hit dice are the same. Hit points are the same. Proficiencies, I believe, are the same. But here's the thing. Armor. Actually, the proficiencies are not the same. The Wizard in 5th edition didn't get a proficiency to armor, which this Wizard also does not get. But weapons, here's the key thing. I think they're trying to focus the Wizard on really being the magical powerhouse that they are supposed to be. Because the Wizard, unless this was a complete typo, the Wizard is normally innately proficient in a few select weapons, mostly simple weapons. The 5th edition Wizard is proficient in daggers, darts, slings, quarterstaffs, and light crossbows. So if they run out of spells, they can always plink it with that crossbow or throw those sling rocks and at least be marginally effective, right? It's still not as good as magic, right? But with the advent of cantrips, do you really need that? So I'm not sure, but I like the fact that the Wizard has spent so much time dedicated to their magical craft that they are not, in Project Black Flag, they are not proficient with any weapon. They may walk around with a quarterstaff, but they're not proficient with it. Now, they may get proficiency from their species or ancestry or race or whatever they're calling it. They may get it from there. They may get it from a talent. They may get it from their background. But at the moment, the straight Wizard does not get any proficiency with weapons. They don't get base tools, and their saves are the same. As my tablet goes to sleep on me. As I compare the wizard to the wizard. Double wizard, we're double wizarding it. Their skills are the same. The skill selection, I should say. The skill selection for their proficiency is the same. A lot of the stuff here is the same here. And as you see, we can see the little chart. Obviously the same thing. 8th level, maximum. We can see the spell progression. And some of you who played Wizards in 5th edition will already see some differences. So we're going to get to that. We get cantrips known, which I believe is the same progression. Let's see, at 8th level. Yes, at 8th level, yeah, the progression is exactly the same. So, yeah, they get 3, 3, 3, and then 4s up to the 8th level, and then we get more at 10th, but we didn't go that far for this one. The number of spells per day they're getting is the same. Yeah, everything here is the same except for that ritual part. Normally, ritual casting was a special thing that wizards could do, and they could cast any ritual spell that they had in their spell book. And they cast it as a ritual. Ritual casting, for those of you who are unaware, is effectively casting a spell without a spell slot, but it just takes a while. Effectively, is if you had a spell that was a ritual spell, you can just sit there and do the special ritual and cast a spell. You can cast it multiple times, but it takes 10 minutes to cast it. So even if it's a 1-action spell, ritual casting it takes 10 minutes. So in this case, they only have a certain number of rituals known. So they're trying to limit the ritual casting part of it, which, you know, maybe they found that was a problem. Maybe it doesn't fit with their world lore. And obviously here, arcane spellcasting, cantrips. This is nothing new here. Spell book. This is how to prepare spells. This is all the same here. How to get your DCs, what ability score you use is intelligence. Ritual casting, this goes into the ritual casting, the idea that they only have certain numbers of rituals and they get higher level, they get more powerful, they get more rituals they can slot into their spell book that they'll have to ritually cast. So they're not given the carte blanche of anything in their spell book that's ritual castable that they can cast. They're limited to certain numbers of rituals. And it goes back to, you also see that the first ring, the arcane circles, what does that mean? We're going to get to that. Arcane Recovery, I believe that is the same or very similar to how it was in 5th edition, but Magical Sense. This is effectively a free detect magic that they can do in combat to be able to detect magical effects, magical people with spell effects on them, people with the ability to cast magic. I think this is a really cool thing where you're so in tune with magic, you really can almost see it. This ability lets you, as an action, you can open your eyes to you open your awareness to detect magical forces. Until the end of your next turn, you know the location of any creature with the ability to cast spells, ongoing spell effects, or magical items within 30 feet of you. If the magical effect results in an ongoing effect, you learn the school of magic that used to bring it into existence. This sense can penetrate most barriers, and it gives you different barriers that will be too thick to block it. You use this feature a number of times, equal to your proficiency bonus +1, and then you need a long rest to refill your pool of arcane or magical sense. So that's a cool ability that they get here, and that's something that is not there for the 5th edition Wizard. That's something brand new for Wizards in Black Flag. And then they get their Arcane Tradition. Well, same thing. We're going to go over one of them, and I'll let you read the other one. All right, improvement, same thing but just like the fighter, where the fighter can pick martial and get +1 to a stat, the wizard gets to pick only magic and +1 to a stat. So it's the same thing, but obviously the magic user is restricted to magic and the fighter is restricted to fighter unless they take that archetype, they take that martial archetype that lets them dip into magic a little bit. Like I said, these things are effectively feats. Here we go. And then we're going to skip over Battle Mage, and then we're going to go over the Cantrip Adept. So there's the one called Battle Mage, which effectively is the same thing, similar to the fact that the fighter got a little bit of magic. That one is the wizard gets a little bit of fighting. So very similar. Obviously their abilities are a little different. This is kind of like how they but it's the same thing. It's like, oh, the fighter gets to dip into wizard a little bit, and the wizard gets to dip into a fighter a little bit. So you'll be able to look at that. Like I said, if you decide to go take a look at this playtest, and I highly encourage anyone who's interested to go pick it up and maybe play a game with your group of friends, or maybe any of your gaming groups. But the cantrip adept is really good at using cantrips. Surprise, surprise. Let's see. It's easy to dismiss cantrips, but you know the cantrip adept makes them, you know, significant. So obviously at 3rd level you get cantrip polymath, and you also get arcane alacrity. Ooh, that sounds cool. So arcane alacrity is really powerful, and I really like it. Whenever you cast an arcane cantrip that has a casting time of 1 action, you can change the casting time to a bonus action for your casting. You can use this feature a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus. You regain all expended uses when you go to a long rest. So you need a long rest to get them all you back, but effectively, a number of times equal to your proficiency, you can decide to use your cantrips as bonus actions. Obviously, that has a casting time of 1 action or less. Cantrip polymath. You gain 2 cantrips from your choice of any circle's spell list. So remember, we talked about circles, the arcane circle. That's the arcane spell list. Effectively, from D&D terms, from 5th edition terms, you have the arcane spell list, you have the divine spell list. You effectively have the 2. And obviously in the new D&D, you have the 3rd one, I believe it's called primal. And I believe in this one, you have 4 different types of spell schools. It's very similar to how Pathfinder 2nd edition does it. You have arcane, like you're effectively affecting the sources of the world, you know, fire, all the elemental forces. You have divine, which is coming from some higher power in conjunction with yourself. So either a deity or some sort of higher being. You have primal or nature magic. Effectively, you're getting it from the earth itself, and you're manipulating that kind of magic. And the 4th one is, in this case, they call it, I'm going to jump ahead a little bit, and you're going to see some stuff. Weird, with the weird circle. It's weird. It's weird. Effectively, like weird stuff, out of this world type stuff, like weird stuff. But you can take 2 cantrips from any school of magic. It doesn't have to be from the arcane spell list. And why wouldn't you take something that's outside of your school of focus to be able to like dip into some other schools of magic? For you, they count as arcane spells, effectively, but you can pick them from any spell list, and they don't count against your numbers of cantrips that you know. So these are in addition to the cantrips you already know from being a base wizard. Then these are on top of that. Oh, effectively, if you got a spell from some other source, and it was technically counted as some other school of magic, say you got a divine magic cantrip from some other source, whether it was from your ancestry or a talent or whatever, it counts as arcane for you. So it all uses the same abilities. It all works off of the same things. And then at 7th level, you get your improvement. You can add your proficiency bonus to 1 damage roll of your cantrip you cast. So effectively, your cantrips get a little bit more powerful, a little more damaging. When they do damage, they get a little bit of boost from your proficiency bonus. So it's pretty self-explanatory. It's not a lot that goes on with this. And then we're going to talents. Like I said, some of these talents were from the prior playtest, and they wanted to clarify them. And then there are some new ones in here. So we have the mental fortitude. That was from the prior playtest. They clarified a rule there. Mental prowess, which is effectively lets you increase your charisma, lets you increase your ability, one of your mental ability scores by 1. Obviously, you can't go over 20. Ritualist lets you unlock more rituals. You can choose 1 circle of magic, so you can be any one that you have, and you can gain rituals from that circle. And when they mean spell ring, you can supplant the word level. So spell ring, spell level, same thing. So a 5th level, a 5th ring spell is a 5th level spell. It's the same thing. Like I said, we're going to dive into that spell section at the end, which is it's at the end, so we're going to do it at the end. Let's see. Effectively, if you get this later on, so if you get this at, let's say, your 20th level or 19th level, and you already have 9th level spells, you're going to get 1 ritual for every level or every ring of spells. So you're going to load up your book. If you get it early, you get it. You get only up to how many spell levels you can cast, spell rings. Each time you access a new ring, you get a new ritual. And then you can also, I believe you could also add more rituals on your own. You can add more rituals to this book. So obviously, like I said, they're separating out the ability to cast any ritual from like the wizard, and I'm assuming other character classes that were allowed to ritually cast spells. They may give you limited rituals like they did with the wizard. At this level, you get 1. At this level, you get 2. So they're going to really kind of curtail and constrain how many rituals you can cast. If you really want more rituals, this is the talent you want. You want the ritualist talent that you would select, and obviously meet the prerequisites. Effectively lets you ignore some effects of heavier weapons. So it lets you ignore the loading property of simple and martial weapons, which you are proficient, and you have advantage on attack rolls made with siege weapons. So if you're using siege weapons or large projectile weapons, you gain advantage on those. So if you're really focusing, if your game really focuses on like defending the keep or assaulting keeps, and you're using like catapults and stuff like that, you're going to want the artillerist. Hand to hand, they kind of clarified that. Physical prowess, it's the same thing as that mental prowess. It lets you get more stats for those particular skills. And here they go. They make a mention of this. There's a third type of talent called technical talents. Now we can assume that things like rogues and rangers and bards are going to have access to technical talents, but so far nothing has access to technical talents. So they put this in there because it's related to the luck ability that they introduced, but effectively nobody can take it right now. I mean, maybe your human might be able to take it, but right now they did make mention that no one can take it, but it's related to luck. So you can take a look at that. And now we get into spell casting, and they define what is spell casting is from a game standpoint and slightly a lore standpoint. So they talk about spell casting when they mean about circles, about rings, and also they go into like what's a cone, what's a line, what's a burst, what's a cube. So they do both sides, and just like, look, they're introducing spells, they got to talk about this. And they could talk into the fact that in their lore, they talk about circles as entire schools of magic. So arcane magic, that's an arcane circle. Divine magic, that's a divine circle. And they do introduce, there are 4 types of magic, which we're going to get into. We have the divine circle. Then we have the arcane circle. Yeah, arcane circle up here. And it kind of tells you the types of magic that they typically use in that school of magic. Down here, the spell detects, suppresses, ends, or otherwise interacts with mechanical aspects of spellcasting, harnesses elemental energy, and the spell interacts with the 5 senses. Okay, those are the generals. Are there exceptions? Probably, but these are the generalities of that school of magic, where that school of magic really focuses in on. Divine magic. They talk about what kind of beings usually is attached to you as the player character using divine magic, and another being granting you or meeting you halfway and allowing you to use this magic. Usually interacts with a creature's life, whether to heal or harm it. The spell does radiant and necrotic damage, and the spell specifically interacts with a deity or includes the word faith in the description. So, things we've seen before, but it's nice that they gave a little bit of lore on each one of the types of magic. We have the primordial, which is effectively, you could call it nature magic or earthly or worldly magic. The spell alters or enhances a creature's biological characteristics, so effectively like polymorph or any other thing where it lets you like get other traits from other creatures. Specifically interacts with plants or beasts, and the spell replicates the effects that could theoretically occur as a natural phenomenon, like summoning a storm or rain or something. Then we have weird magic, weird circle. So it summons creatures from a different plane or realm. And the spell harnesses energy that is not elemental in nature, and the spell allows travel to be different planes. So this is that weird circle. So effectively, this tells me, and also tells any of you, that they're maybe trying to have 4 schools of magic. So maybe there'll be 4 different spell casting classes, and they may be retooling. Maybe sorcerer casts weird magic. Maybe bards cast weird magic, and druids are going to focus on that primordial magic. And obviously, spellcasters like clerics and paladins are going to focus in on that divine, because they're going to reach another creature. Maybe they even say here that the way it reads, it might also pull in warlocks to an extent too. So warlocks may tip to the sides of weird because they're getting, maybe their entities are otherworldly entity, or maybe their entity is some sort of divine or divine related being, and so they maybe be able to tip from side to side of divine and weird. That's even if they include a warlock. That may be specifically to 5th edition, and they may not even include warlock, so who knows? We'll find out. And they go into what spell rings are. Like I said, it's akin to spell levels, and spell slots are spell slots. These are how many slots you have to cast spells that are beyond cantrips. They go into the different schools of magic and what they represent. Obviously, abjuration we talked about before. Spells in this group use wards, shields, and other means of deflection to defend their targets. So it's protection magic. And we talked about evocation. I call it boom magic because things go boom when you use it. And it usually focuses on the 4 elements. Repairing spells, and this is just rules, but nothing here is really out of the ordinary. This is basically how it works in D&D. Casting an armor, this works the same way, and if you're not proficient, you can't do it. If you're proficient, then you have no problems. Combining effects, this is stacking things, and this is the elements of this is just rules on spell casting. This is normal stuff. So we're gonna, and it gives you, this is just rules. This is, I haven't detected any major things. The reason I'm going through this here is this part here. They do give you conversions of spells that exist in 5th edition and what they would be in Black Flag. And they also give you, I believe they give you some spells here. Yeah, they gave you some spell descriptions that they modify of their own in here. And they tell you what rings, what circles that they belong to in, as here, they give you up to 3rd level, I believe. What school of magic that they will kind of focus in on. Okay, they only give you arcane spells. So they only focus on arcane spells, since obviously the only spellcaster in here casts arcane. So whether it's the fighter with the spellblade or it's the wizard, they're both casting arcane. So they only focus on arcane in this one. I'm assuming that as further playtests come out, more of these will come out, and they may focus each playtest maybe on a specific school of magic. Who knows? And they gave you like different things, like comprehend languages. Maybe it works significantly different. I didn't really look up the spells. I'm not much of a spellcasting user, but they also give you rituals, creating your familiar and what that encompasses. And they give you, if you want to provide feedback, there's the website, but I'll put it in the description below. Okay. So what do I think about this? I think this is a good launching off point. This more inspires me than the first playtest that they came out with. I was worried in the first playtest that this was basically going to be a 5th edition, kind of like, it's 5th edition except with these 3 minor changes, or these 4 minor changes. And I didn't want minor changes. I want big changes. But I also understand that they are a company that makes 5th edition products, and they don't want to have to make for their game and make for 5th edition. That's double the work. So making it as closely compatible with 5th edition as possible, I get it, but I also want to see what they can do on their own, making their own system. So do I understand why they so closely attach themselves to 5th edition? Yes. What I wish that they would be bigger and better? Of course. But I think that they're making enough changes to make this, to want me to try this now, that with the double proficiency bonus, which is really the only big thing that happened from the first playtest, the new inspiration system, the luck system, the minor or the moderate ways that the classes are different, like the whole improvement thing with the talents and integrating talents and integrating you can only get certain talents. You don't get to pick any feat you want. You get to pick these feats. You get to pick those feats. Oh, you pick this subtype, you get to widen out your talent pool of things you can pull from. So yes, I think that this is all good stuff. And I actually want to see now, I am actually excited at the next playtest that they're going to come out with, because I want to see more. I'm excited that what other new changes they're going to make to the other classes. Maybe they're going to make their own class and maybe make their own stuff. So yeah, I can't wait for more coming out from Kobold Press in what's going to be different, what's going to be similar, how they're going to adjust the rules, what classes they're going to include. But if you want to check out the playtest, and also maybe you've already played in the playtest, you want to give your feedback, you can either, obviously, don't give feedback to the game, to us. I mean, yes, give it to us too, but give it to the Kobold Press people so they can really refine their game. But if you want to just talk about anything that I put in this video or anything I didn't put in this video, sign off in the comments down below. But until then, this is Steve from Nothing Ventured, Nothing Gained. May all your die rolls be crits, and may you always roll max damage. See you later.